In 1919, over 4 million American workers went on strike. The population at the time was about 104 million, making that 3.8% of the entire American population that was striking. It's the greatest wave of labor unrest in American history. The strike wave reached its peak in the era's greatest labor uprising, the Steel Strike. Today, we're going to be reading a report from John A. Fitch on the Great Steel Strike of 1919. There's about to be a lot of text on screen, but don't be scared. It's a long document, but don't be scared. I'll be there to hold your hand and read you through it. It's okay. It's okay. If you're new here, I show the primary source documents in its entirety so that you guys can, read it or at least read the parts that I have selected or highlighted. So I'm going to go ahead and show all of it now. It's a long document, but I'm going to come back. Don't worry. As I said before, over 4 million workers engaged in strikes, and the strike wave reached its peak in the era's greatest labor uprising, the Steel Strike, which centered in Pittsburgh and Chicago, uniting more than 365,000 mostly immigrant workers in demands for union recognition, higher wages, and an 8-hour workday. Down here at the bottom of this paragraph, it's a little bit of a speech by a Polish immigrant, which I'm going to be reading out. I'm just going to read this part now because I know it resonates with many Americans. For why we buy Liberty Bonds? For the mills? No, for freedom in America. For everybody. No more working like a horse and wagon. For 8-hour days. That's why they're striking. Here he's just talking about the reasons behind the strike. Is it this? Is it that? Or is it an old-fashioned dispute of anti-union employers against organized labor in any form, such as has long been threshed out and settled in other major American industries in favor of collective bargaining? See, this collective bargaining seems to have gone away in all these American industries, so maybe we need to start thinking about that again. Now, here he's going to be talking about how it's not just immigrant workers, there's solidarity, there's class solidarity, except in Pittsburgh, where the cleavage between Native American stock and foreigners was a long marked feature of Pittsburgh mill towns. And then down at the bottom, he's talking about how in Pittsburgh, the Americans are mostly at work, whether this is due to their superior economic condition, the best jobs all belong to Americans, or whether it's the distrust of the hunky or their fear of discharge and blacklist. It is difficult to say. Now, strikers and union breaking was huge back then. They used to just fire people, blacklist them from getting other jobs. It was like a whole thing, like these strikes were very necessary. Up here out in the mill towns, the strikers told me of being discharged for joining the union. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the working conditions and why they needed to strike for this. These open hearth worked 6 days in the normal times, but during the war they worked 7 days a week, working a long shift of 24 hours every second week. 24-hour shifts. 24 hours continuous work is common, and 36 and 48 hours by no means unknown. Here he's talking about the necessity of striking. So long as 50% of the men work 12 hours a day, thousands of them 7 days a week with a long shift of 18 or 24 hours every second week, no one can claim for the steel industry the maintenance of an American standard of living. Now he's talking about how the immigrants are standing up and fighting for American standards and are doing it lawfully and with amazing patience while their constituted authorities are harassing them on every side. Please go ahead and read this speech. I'm begging you, just read this. I don't have time to read it all out. I want to keep this as short as possible, but I know I can't because this document is just so long. But in every war America has ever had, the foreigner has played his part and has kept Old Glory flying. We are a nation of immigrants. The best way to Americanize immigrants is to Americanize their working conditions and their local government so that they may have time for thinking and time and opportunity to hold such meetings as those they are holding now. Now I'm going to read a Polish immigrant speech that I think will resonate with everybody. I might put this at the beginning of the video too. Mr. Chairman, he said, Mr. Chairman, just like horse and wagon. Put horse in wagon, work all day. Take horse out of wagon, put in stable. Take horse out of stable, put in wagon. Same way like mills. Work all day, come home, go sleep. Get up, go work in mills, come home. Wife say, John, children sick. You help with children. You say, oh, go to hell. Go sleep. Wife say, John, you go to town. You say, no, go sleep. No, what the hell you do? For why this war? For why we buy Liberty Bonds? For mills? No, for freedom in America. For everybody. No more horse and wagon. For 8-hour day. I know many Americans right now are feeling like horse and wagon. I know many Americans do not have an 8-hour day. I think the 8-hour day only applies to union jobs and like white collar jobs like a fucking office. But like the vast majority of working Americans, especially immigrants, like again in these steel mills having awful working conditions, the best way to Americanize immigrants is to Americanize their working conditions. Anyways, just remember that we can have millions of people striking at the same time. We can get 3.8% of the population to strike as long as we fight for it, as long as we are all united under the same cause. The strikes only stopped working because the middle class opinion turned against them and they started not vibing with their immigrant counterparts as much. Like, guys, please, we need to get our shit together now.